people who feel engaged and respected are much better at delivering fantastic results. And for us as a fast-paced company, I think this is very crucial.
Welcome to the Voice of Visma podcast, where the heartbeat of our community comes to life. Join us as we chat with Visma leaders and colleagues, sharing their stories, industry insights, and valuable career lessons.
Welcome to Voice of Visma. My name is Henny and I will be the host for the next 2 episodes. I work as a people manager in the group people team, and there I work, among other things, with diversity, equity and inclusion. And that is the topic for this episode. And today I'm so lucky to have you with me, Iveta, in the studio. Hello and welcome.
Hello, Henny. Thank you so much for having me in the studio.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Could you start by telling our listeners a bit more about yourself and your role in Visma?
Sure. I joined Visma almost 10 years ago, and I was employee number 10 in a Competence Centre in Riga, which is now having more than 250 employees. And it has been a journey. And on the way, we picked up leadership of another competence center. And so I'm in charge of 2, one based in Riga, another in Madrid. And now Madrid team is 95 employees big. So I have been in MD's role, but had an opportunity to really utilize my full potential being part of Visma.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's quite a journey as well. But if we then go back to diversity and inclusion, what does that mean to you, both personally and professionally?
To me, diversity and inclusion is like human value, which should be part of each individual's toolkit, so to say, in life, because respecting other opinions, respecting people regardless of their backgrounds, and trying to find some common grounds to boost their creativity and also brainstorming goes the best if people can really open up with diverse visions they have on different topics.
That's so true. And do you have any personal experience about the topic in your professional journey?
Yes, I could tell that if I look maybe 15 years back, it has been completely different world. And I used to work in industries where maybe female colleagues were not attracted by those roles which were needed for the company. And sometimes I ended up sitting at business dinner with 17 colleagues, all male colleagues around the table, and I was feeling pretty lonely at those days. So when I joined Visma, first thing that I noticed that Visma is way much different in a way how we operate and how many female colleagues we see around, and being in leadership roles and inspiring all the others. I think from day one, my heart belongs to Visma, because when I came for the first interviews and heard not only about the products and really the vision, how company wants to evolve with time, I really think Visma is a very special place to work.
Yes, I agree. It's really is unique here in Visma, and it's very cool to say that we are kind of in the top when we look at our industry in regards to female leaders, etc. Although we need to keep working on it and keep getting better as well. But looking then at gender, because diversity and inclusion is so much more than just about gender. How would you define it?
You're so right. When I'm looking at engagement comments that employees are placing next to these diversity and inclusion questions, I see that really many people think that it's just ending with gender, but it's so much more. It's not only gender, it's background, it's age, it's belonging to certain nationality, having certain political beliefs, belonging to certain religions or any other interest groups that people represent. And I think inclusion is the one which actually serves as a glue, which is helping us to put all these diverse talents, diverse opinions together, and we can come up with much more creative solutions, and company can benefit and really evolve much quicker than maybe another work style would be able to deliver. I see that people who feel encouraged that they can speak up even if they do not agree with something really can feel heard and understood, and they take ownership when they get their ideas through in the company. And it's much more interesting to work in management teams where everyone can open up, telling their opinions and ideas. I think in my previous job, although I have worked in many different companies, this is the first company where I see at this extent that we are able to be ourselves and true to ourselves.
Yes, Iveta. And do you see that this, how you work in the competence centers, does this differ from how other companies in Visma work, the more product-related companies, for example?
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely, because competence centers, first of all, trying to find the talent that is needed for Visma Group companies is looking not only in internal market, but sometimes also goes out, not only to Europe, but out of Europe if we are searching for certain talent. And therefore, we have ended up with having much more nationalities represented. With a different composition of nationalities, it also comes different experiences, different religions, different beliefs. From the day one, I think competence centers have been, maybe even before Visma announced diversity and inclusion as one of our core values, it has been our core value from the beginning. We couldn't have operated if we wouldn't respect people and really try to listen to their ideas and build good, strong company culture and strong teams.
Yeah. So then you would say then that our core values are then integrated into our companies and the competence centers, culture and operations throughout.
Definitely. And I think this value, even before we announced it as official Visma value, I have seen it from the day one. When I came to Oslo office for the interview, from the very first moment I entered the building, I noticed that this company is running different business practices than others.
Yes, where every individual is really valued and respected for who they are and their opinions. As you say, it's an important part of our culture. It's not just our core value, but something that we're working daily with as well to make even better.
Indeed,
yes.
Indeed. And we can do it together. We can learn. Of course, there are sometimes situations when people overdo diversity and inclusion initiatives and they want to really be very vocal about their opinions. So we have to balance it. But with smart leadership, I see this value adding more benefits for the company than creating challenges.
Yes, and about that, so far this year, if we see this year, there's been a lot of discussions around diversity and inclusion. We can all look back at the presidential election in the US, for example, and how when the US government then stopped all their DEI initiatives from start. And that, of course, has affected a lot of companies, but also individuals worldwide. And it's brought up a lot of discussions around the topic. How do you reflect about what's been happening the past couple of months?
I really think that the US, from the days it was established, is representing a much wider amount of nationalities and cultures mixed together. So going to these new practices, to me, looks like a short-term initiative because considering amount of diversity it represents as a country. For a while, of course, US can switch priorities to other maybe areas where they see that they have to evolve at a better speed. But overall, I do not see that they can really go back to times when diversity and inclusion wasn't important for the country. The same goes for the companies, even if they stopped their initiatives because they see that the legislation is changing. But it doesn't take away from agenda that companies want to have better decisions. And what's the point of having management team, which is having one opinion of leader of the team, and then why should we pay the salary for the rest of the people? That they cannot spark their creativity, cannot come up with good suggestions, better vision on different problems that we need to solve with our products. I think this is just a matter of time when US will be back to diversity and inclusion incentives again.
Yes, because as we've already discussed a bit as well, that it really is a part of our everyday work, and it's not easy to just disregard diversity and inclusion because it's naturally a part of what makes all the individuals in a company unique. And the fact that we're working together to make great things happen.
And I think that we have so high engagement in Visma just because we are, in this regard, very unique culture where people can open up and really use full capacity of their talents and become the best of them, like their version in this life.
Yeah. But then taking it a bit down again to businesses, like why is it important for businesses, do you think, to work with D&I?
First of all, to respect people who belong to this business. So people who feel engaged and respected are much better at delivering fantastic results. And for us as a fast-paced company, I think this is very crucial. Also, company can gain from having more opportunity to attract people from maybe market, considering that other companies will not continue practicing diversity and inclusion as value. And I think this is good opportunity to attract people who really have good skills that we will need for the future. And I think people really want to work in the companies where they feel heard, and where they can come up with initiatives that their roles are not strictly defined, that they cannot grow. So that shouldn't be the case.
So what will you then, if we can break it down to then the benefits of doing it, can we see some direct results in business results when working with D&I?
I know that Visma is in the top 5% of companies with gaining really advantage from having this as one of our core values. And I really think that we should continue to be maybe in top 3%, not just 5%.
Yeah, actually now top 5 is the highest place where we can measure it on Peakon. But I agree. The more things we can do to make us strive and be better, the better it is.
Yes, and I think that considering that we have business in so many countries, if we wouldn't be this diversity and inclusion oriented company, it would be very hard to collaborate. If everyone would stand on solid and firm opinions and will not open the door for others to be heard, it would be very autocratic, very unappealing way of leading the business. And I think that kind of leadership, this is the last years when we see that it still thrives. And with generations changing, I look more towards more inclusive and diversity-oriented society and values for the companies and also for people.
Yeah, and we do see also that when we're working together with people that are diverse as well, that kind of also sparks our inspiration and our ability to see things differently, which also helps produce better things in our products, for example, and also which creates then, of course, better business results. So it's all kind of connected in a way as well, what we're doing with diversity.
Indeed.
Yes. But what about then, are there some challenges about working with D&I as well?
Definitely, because not all people immediately believe in diversity and inclusion as a value. Some really look at very narrow definition of diversity, just thinking that it ends with gender balance in the company, which I wouldn't want us also to focus on, because it's not about just gender. It's about really representing wide range of talents, wide range of experiences, people being able to open up with their creative ideas and not being afraid of suggesting maybe some stupid but cool solutions. And sometimes when you just start drilling down and thinking how it really could add value for the business, you see that this idea is not stupid at all. As sometimes we just try to listen to people first who represent similar opinion as ours. I think diversity and inclusion adds in creating much better products, much better perspectives, and our customers definitely benefit from that, and also employees feel more proud working in a company which is demonstrating this human value rather than just closing door for it.
True. And I believe we do have a lot of unconscious biases within us as well, where the initiatives now we're doing in Visma can help us at least be aware of the unconscious biases that we have as well, to help us feel, okay, but this is a perspective that's quite similar to mine. Of course, that's the right one, but no, we need to have some other opinions and perspectives as well to.
Yes, and I love that we do social styles, which is helping us to understand better other colleagues. And of course, it's not black and white. You're not representing just one kind of personality. It's a combination of everything. Mm-hmm. But understanding that this kind of person makes decisions based on analytical aspects, and other maybe wants to be in harmony with everyone to gain consensus and leads discussions in a different manner. Someone who wants to drive to results maybe is more impatient, but can be balanced out with those people who are really facts-oriented and want to have solid grounds before making decisions. So all this composition actually ends up with a much better result for the team.
Yes, it's a very effective tool, social styles especially.
Yeah.
Especially also for leaders then, because it's not necessarily that you should lead everybody the same way. Everybody needs their individual leading style or leading approach, because everybody needs to be led in the way that they see fit.
Yes, and it helps us to also see that maybe if we prepare some presentations or do some business plans for the future, that you will not be able to convince different audiences with the same layout of information and putting the accents on the certain things and showing it in the same light to all kind of employees, because one audience will be very emotional and happy and will say and let's jump in and let's do it, and someone will say hold back, I'm not so convinced that this is the best solution. And it's good to have these discussions, because sometimes indeed we are very driven by results and rushing to achieve certain progress, maybe in the wrong direction.
So I think then it's safe to say that, especially with our points of view, that businesses do actually see benefits of working with D&I, and that it can also help us at least spark better business results at the end.
Definitely, and we can attract better talent, knowing that we are not trying to shape everyone's mind the same way, that people can really boost their creativity here.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Well, great, Iveta. It was so nice having you in the studio today. Thank you so much for sharing your point of view on this very exciting and important topic.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really a pleasure to be here.
Perfect. And thank you all for listening. Stay tuned for more episodes of Voice of Visma. And if you have any questions regarding any topics, don't hesitate to let us know.